Alright, we'll start with putting in the flywheel key. Or no, we'll start with putting on the cover. And then the key. So you got a little paper gasket underneath here. You want to make sure that everything is good to go and in place. Okay. And we'll put this cover down and on. Had to take the flywheel key out to get the cover and the gasket off without damaging the gasket. And then this little spring clip here comes up and over, and it pops down. You just push down on it until it pops underneath. That holds the cover down and out of the way. And then we just want to get our wires so that they're not much higher than that cover, but also in a spot where they're not going to rub and chafe and eventually lead to an electrical short. So I'm going to see if I can just separate and unstack my wires here because they're sticking up just a smidge. I'm going to just use my pry driver here as a gentle moving device to get this down and around. So if this chafes or rubs and makes unintended contact with ground, it's going to short out the ignition system and we won't have spark, and we'll be back here again wondering what's going on and checking our work. So I just kind of want that lowered in place but not pinched or at a point where it's going to rub or chafe over time. Okay, flywheel key. We want to have a look at our flywheel key. If you can see this. Okay, check it for signs of what am I trying to say? Gouging or scoring. If there's anything deep, looks like it might have been partially sheared, then we'd want to replace it. This one's got some very light scratching, but I think it's good to go. So we're going to go ahead and use it. Usually that's more of a lawnmower thing, but hey, you can suck up a twig or a newspaper with a snowblower and stop dead in its tracks too. And we're going to get that key pounded in, so I'll be right back with a brass mallet. Okay, and a brass mallet here, and I'm just going to use that to gently set that down into the key seat. Now I want to focus on making sure that the top of the key is parallel to the center line of the case. Not hitting it all that hard, just enough to get it into its groove because it is a pretty tight fit. At this point, I'm going to double check all my wires, make sure that's loose and that's loose. This should be tight, but I'm going to double check it because I did loosen that earlier for changing the coil. Okay, so that's pretty tight. And now we can start to install our flywheel. Notice the magnets on the inside here of our flywheel. Okay, make sure those are clear, free of anything. Nothing got stuck to them like a loose bolt or anything. And we're going to line up our keyway. Okay, that there. If I wanted to, I could probably try to spin this by hand and check the spark, but I feel fairly confident in what I'm doing. So I'm going to move forward with torquing down the flywheel. Put on our starter cup, find a hole for that to sit down into, washer, 3/4 inch nut, and I'm going to pause you guys while I go get a torque wrench and a flywheel holder because I hadn't gotten that out yet. I wasn't really planning on recording that, but I think I will. Okay, so our torque on this flywheel nut is 39 foot-pounds for this H70 here, according to the old Tungsten manual. Let's see if I can get a grip for 39 pounds. So close. There we go. 39 on the nose. How do you like that? Still flashing. There you go. All right. Moving on. Flywheel nut torch. Now we need to put on our shroud cover. And I have to figure out where all this stuff came from since I'm not the one who took it off. We gotta make sure we get everything in the right order and in the right way. Route our primer hose here. Go down through. This should just sneak past. Drop into place here. Watch that spark plug wire. We gotta get that up in the right spot here. Tricky part on these is this lower part. Okay, I'm actually pretty happy with that. Oops, gotta find a bigger nut driver. Grab some extra tools here. Now I've got to roll. I keep forgetting to turn you on. Remember, when you're doing multiple ones like these, we have to get them all started before we lock anything down. Using a nut driver so that I don't over torque and cross thread, because these ones down here are notorious for sometimes being difficult to line up. I'm going to leave that loose. So we got 3 head bolts that got to go in underneath the shroud cover. Oh, let's see here. So we got 3 bolts, checking for length. And this is where I really wish I probably would have had a camera, because I know this goes somewhere. But since I didn't take it off, I'm not 100% sure. This is also where making sure you take a look at your witness marks and the marks of the bolt sleeve for clues as to how it was before it was taken apart, especially if you're not the one who did it. So let's see here, we got all the same length, fortunately. I believe I figured it out because I can see the marks. And then we got to torque these down. And on these compasses, I think we're looking at 200 inch-pounds for the torque spec for the head bolt. Alright, and they should be 1/2 inch. Yep. Got a 1/2 inch socket here and a nut driver. I'm going to spin these down. Now, even though some of the head bolts are still torqued, and some are not, I'm going to go ahead and retorque them all in sequence. So I'm going to loosen up the ones that aren't, just so that I can torque them in sequence to make sure that the cylinder head gasket gets a good and proper seal. And then we'll check the spark, and if we got, well, actually I could probably check for spark and then do the cylinder head torque. And if we got spark, we'll put it back together, and I'll turn the camera back on when it's time to fire it up. At this point, I got the cover on. I'm going to put on a couple of miscellaneous screws. But I'm going to do that on the ground since me shaking the engine is causing the fuel tank to leak slightly. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'll set it down. I'll get it set up for a spark test. And I'll turn the camera back on so you guys can see. Alright, and I'm back after a brief intermission. I got the shroud mostly on. I've left the kill switch wires for the transmission and auger switches disconnected yet. And I'm just going to go to do my final pass on torquing down the cylinder head bolts in sequence. So the torque spec on these is 200 inch-pounds. I already torqued them up to about 100, a little over 100 inch-pounds, and I'm going to come here now. I'm going to finish it off to 200. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Just make sure that we have satisfactory compression. I'm going to use a spark plug to start out with here. This is the customer replaced it, and it said that he said that it wanted to try to start, but it didn't yet. So we've got a new plug in here. Before we had an occasional spark here or there, but not a whole lot. Hopefully you guys can see this. Let me check and see if I can get you zoomed in a little bit better here. Sorry, shaky camera. Okay. So it's got the spark plug grounded on the cylinder head bolt. Now when I pull it over, you can see we got a pretty decent spark there. Hopefully you can see. Let me pull this out. I'm going to go ahead and put in a spark tester. It's got a significantly larger gap to it. I'm going to do the same test. So that's going to stress test the ignition system to make sure that it can work under load. You can see we got some pretty good spark coming with our spark tester. Now we can use other style testers like the bulb style here, but it doesn't load the ignition system quite like this guy does. So we'll go with that. I even have a new plug, but I don't think I'm going to need it because he did. The owner did say that they did just replace that. So we'll go ahead. We'll put this in, snug it down. I'll finish hooking up all the connections and get it ready to run, and I'll meet you back here in just a moment.